could you describe boredom for us?
Boredom is an emotion, so like every emotion, it has a purpose and it has a reason for being there. But it is an emotion, and that we feel it and that we have cognitions about it. It's usually seen as something negative. We usually see boredom as a very negative emotion.
Is it negative?
It's usually negative. The experience of boredom is about searching for neural stimulation. So it's that sort of search for stimulation that we experience, that and not finding that what we're looking for. That feeling of not finding what we're looking for is what we call boredom. So if we're searching for stimulation and we find it, then we're no longer bored. But it's that awareness that we're looking for something and not finding it. That's what we call boredom.
Why is it seen as a bad thing?
It's seen as a bad thing because it feels bad. So normally if you ask people, what does boredom feel like? And I've done this in my research, what does boredom feel like? And they'll always say, oh, it feels bad, it feels stressful, it feels negative. But also we see it as a bad thing because it can lead us to do quite negative things. So we associate boredom with the negative things that it causes us to do, like overeating and drinking and alcohol and drugs and gambling. So we see it as a negative phenomenon.
But according to your book, there are benefits of boredom. Could you explain a bit about?
So boredom is a double-edged sword. On the one hand, if you have too much of it, then it's quite negative and you can have quite negative outputs. But if you don't have enough boredom in your life and you're too busy, always busy, then that's a problem too. And if we don't have enough boredom, enough downtime, and time to let our minds wander and daydream, then we lose out on creativity. What my research in the book has shown is that there's a lot of links between creativity and boredom. What I've done in my own research at my university is that the more bored we get, the more creative we become.
Are we getting more bored nowadays than before?
That's a very good question. It's a question that we can't actually answer because boredom is a new area of research, so we've not measured boredom in the past. However, the real question is, why are we still bored today? Because we shouldn't be bored anymore. Our boredom should be lower now than it was before. And yet we still seem to be as bored as ever. People still complain of boredom, kids complain of boredom, students are quitting colleges and school because they're bored. You know, why is that? Why are we so bored today?
Why?
Yeah, we shouldn't be. And the reason that
What is your answer to that?
We have all this stimulation. We have 24/7. We have the world at our fingertips in our devices. So on the one hand, we shouldn't be bored because we've got the world at our fingertips. We've got the entire universe at our fingertips. But on the other hand, because we're used to so much stimulation over and over again, stimulation, novelty, new, whizzy, bang, bang, constantly, we become used to a higher level of stimulation. And the more stimulation we have, the more we seek. The more novelty we have, the more we need, because it's no longer novel. And we get a dopamine hit from newness and novelty and excitement. And dopamine is quite addictive. Mm-hmm. It's almost, some people think it's as addictive as cocaine. And the more we have, the more we crave. So the more stimulation we have, the more we're going to need. And that's why, however much stimulation we have, it's never going to be enough. And we seek more and more and more. And that's why we seem to be more bored today than we should be, and perhaps than we ever have been.
And that's happening especially with the children. Children are getting more bored than ever.
They seem to be, and really we shouldn't be able to understand this because, you know, you go into school, my kids are in school, everything's interactive whiteboards and whizzy, and they do maths to music and tables to music, and everything's so exciting. They have Victorian Day and a this day and a that day, a dress up day and a World Book Day, and it should all be so exciting, yet they seem to be bored. And that's because, in my opinion, the more stimulation they're getting, the more they need. And they've got this high level of stimulation in their lives outside of school. They go on the TV and their iPads from the minute they wake up till the minute they go to bed, and they're seeking, everything they get is what I call whizzy, bang, bang, noisy, flashy, constantly changing. So the more stimulation they're getting, they get used to that level of stimulation and it's no longer stimulating. So they want to go to the next level and get even more stimulation. So whatever we do for them, however much stimulation we give them, it's never going to be enough. And then they end up as adults who can't concentrate, can't sit down and read a book or read a report or revise for an exam.
But it's funny because despite these bad consequences, being bored is one of the, it's like a sin. It's something people are feeling ashamed of, especially in the workplace.
Absolutely right. In fact, when I did my research on boredom in the workplace, and I went to one company and asked, "Can I research boredom amongst your employees?" And the chief executive goes, "We don't have boredom in our workplace. None of my staff are ever bored." And I thought, well, that is not actually true, because everybody experiences boredom. So there is a sort of shame, and if you're bored, then maybe you're not important enough or busy enough. And I give lectures all over the world, and I always say to people, is there anyone in this room who doesn't know what boredom is, or doesn't know what it is to be bored? And there's always one or two that put their hand up and they're very proud. Yeah. I don't know what it is to be bored. I'm never bored. Only boring people are bored. And I'm like, well, actually, you should have boredom. It's not healthy to never be bored. It's getting that balance right. Yeah. Just enough stimulation and just the right level of boredom.
Don't you think that being busy has become a symbol of
busy, and you've got to show how important you are? It's like stress. Stress is now, the more stressed you are, the more important you must be, and the more busy you are. And the fact that if you're walking down the road or waiting for a train and you have to get your phone out, you must be important. You can't possibly sit and waste time. And I think we have a sickness about a hurry sickness, and a sickness about wasting time. We don't like to just do nothing anymore. We've got to be doing lots of different things at once.
You said boredom is a double-edged sword. Could you tell me the benefits of boredom and the negative things of boredom?
Well, the benefits of boredom are quite hidden, and this is what my research has shown in the book, that when we are bored, we can actually stimulate creativity. And what I did is at my university is I did some work with a student. We got people really bored by getting them to copy phone numbers out of a phone book. It's a really boring, meaningless task.
Yep.
And then we wanted to see how creative they are. We measured their creativity by giving them tasks of creative potential. And we found that those people who were most bored were able to come up with more creative tasks. And the link is daydreaming and mind wandering. And when you're bored and you just allow your mind to wander and your daydreams to happen, your mind starts creating that stimulation that's missing in the environment. And you can go on journeys in your mind, you can go anywhere you like, and you can start thinking outside the box. You can start looking at things in a different way, tapping into your subconscious. And that's what's missing when we don't allow that process of boredom to happen.
And that's why you, in your book, you ask us to embrace boredom.
We do need to embrace boredom. I feel that people are too busy, and they're rushing around, and they're using their devices to swipe and scroll boredom away, and they're not winning. This fight against boredom. I'm bored, I get my phone out, and yet they're still bored. And I even heard that Facebook is boring. There's research that says Facebook is boring. Facebook is boring. I mean, it's the world there. What's going on when we find such amazing things boring? And we're bored of it because it's not novel anymore, it's not new, and we're constantly looking for new things. Oh, I've seen that, oh, that's boring. So we've got to introduce a little bit of downtime and try and reduce this hurry sickness and this busy sickness that we've got all the time, and just sit and be sometimes.
Two more questions. Could you explain us the link between boredom and the industry of food, of cheap food, of sugary food?
Well, I believe that boredom is actually propping up the confectionery industry, because my research shows that the top thing we do when we're bored is we reach for a chocolate bar, a candy bar, sugar, something fatty, the sort of food that gives us a dopamine hit. So the reason that we get a dopamine hit from sugar and fatty foods is that dopamine is the reward chemical in our brain. And in our evolutionary past, we needed to have those foods to sustain us. They were very important for our diet. So our brains were designed to reward us for having the things that we needed. Of course, nowadays we don't need those foods so much anymore, but we still get that hit, and that hit is very pleasurable and it counteracts boredom. So that's why we turn to sugary, fatty foods. We also turn to caffeine, coffee, in order to help us pay attention more, because when we're bored we struggle to pay attention to things. So this is why,
and those are the light substances you can get, you can recur to, because you can get into other things.
Yeah, so a lot of people are so bored, and one of the things that we ask people, what do you do at the end of a boring day? What are you most likely to do? and they're more likely to, watch television, fine, but they're more likely to drink, use alcohol, drugs, undertake risky behaviours, whether that be extreme sports or something more dangerous, more dodgy really. So these are the sort of things that you might do after a boring day. Gambling, the things that can be quite negative, that can be addictive, and that can lead to a lot of problems.